Hi everyone, my name is Akorede Adenike. You are highly welcome to my channel. In this tutorial today, I would like to teach you how to cut and sew this beautiful trendy bubu with front slits showing on the screen. Now let's get into it. This is the fabric I'm using for the tutorial today. I have 3 yards of this beautiful fabric here. To know the amount of fabric putting on foot for this beautiful bubu dress, I'm going to measure from my center back. I'm doing that on my mannequin for you guys to understand. I'm going to measure from my center back here, the bone that is there, till wherever I want it to reach. Or better still, if you want to make yours, you can divide your back into 2 and add extra 13 to 14 inches to it. So I'm going to fold my fabric now for you guys to see. I'm done folding my fabric. As you can see, this is the front part. This is the back part. And this is the front part. I added extra 1 inch for slit, for front slit to my front part. This side of this fabric is a little bit stretchy, as you can see, and the other side is not stretchy. So this is my starting point, which is ½ inch. So I'm going to measure from my starting point now, which indicates my shoulder. I'm going to measure from my center front the width of my neck, both front and back. And I measured 3.5 inches for that. So the depth of my front is 7 inches from the shoulder line, while the depth of my back is 1 inch from the shoulder line. So I'm going to connect it with the curved side of my ruler. I'm connecting my back with my free hand. If you have your curved ruler, you can make use of that if you are a beginner. I'm going to connect my front part with the curved side of my ruler just like this. I'll let it extend to the front part like this. So after drawing out my neckline, I'm going to come down here for me to draw out my shoulder slope. Let me drag it a little bit for you guys to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to measure from my shoulder line. I'm going to measure 1 inch for my shoulder slope. After measuring it, I'm going to connect it slantly to meet the neckline. With the help of my straight ruler, just like this. After drawing out my shoulder slant, I'm going to add ½ inch for my shoulder joining from here to here, just like this. If you are a beginner, please make sure you measure it before you connect it to the neckline to make your job accurate, please. And always add your own creativity to whatever you are doing to make it unique. Now from my shoulder line, I'm going to measure out my chest line by dividing my round armhole into 2 and add extra 2 inches to it to make it free a little bit at the armpit. So that is what I'm marking here now. My round armhole is 16 inches divided by 2, that is 8 inches. I added 2 inches to it, that is 10 inches. So 10 inches from my shoulder line, that is what I'm marking out now. After marking it, from my shoulder line, I'm going to measure out my waistline, just to make you see it very well. That is why I'm remarking it. So my waist is 17 inches from my shoulder, that is what I'm marking there. From there, my hip is 23 inches from my shoulder line, that is what I'm marking there too. And on my chest line, I'm going to input quarter of my bust. My bust is 38 inches divided by 4, give me 9.5. I don't need to add any seam allowance to it because the fabric I'm making use is a little bit stretchy on this side. So from my center back, I measured quarter of my bust on my chest line. So I'm doing the same thing on my waistline. I'm going to input quarter of my waistline without adding any seam allowance to it. On my hip line, I'm going to do the same thing. Divide my hip into 4 and place it on the hip line without adding any seam allowance to it. So I'm doing the same thing till I reach the bottom of my dress. So I'm going to connect it just like this from my chest line to my waist and from my waist to my hip with my free hand, just like this. So I'm going to measure quarter of my hip till I reach the bottom of my dress before connecting it to make it accurate. So I'm connecting it now from my hip line to the bottom of my dress with the help of my straight ruler, just like this. So this measurement, I'm going to repeat it on the other part of my back part, and I'm doing the same thing on the front part as well. I'm making all the markings on the right side because I'm stitching on that right side as a Bubu dress. So on this side now, to make it curve a little bit at the bottom here, I'm going to measure about 10 inches upward. Now I'm going to connect it with my free hand, just like this. So I'm cutting it out now. And I'm cutting my back neckline first. My shoulder slant. So after cutting it out, this is what I have. I'm going to remove my back for me to complete the cutting of the front part. So I'm done copying all necessary measurements on the other side of the back and front part. So I'm putting my back aside for me to complete the cutting of the front. And I'm going to make a slit here. I'm done cutting, as you can see. So I'm moving on to the sewing aspect. I'm starting my sewing from the front part. I'm trying to remove the pin that I used to hold it down to avoid it from shaking. So I'm going to replace it and place it on each other like this. Let the right side face each other. This is the front part of it. So I'm going to measure from my shoulder line. I'm going to measure 30 inches, which is above my knee length. So this is where I'm starting my slit. So from my center front, and make sure you add ½ inch for shoulder joining to it to avoid any silly mistakes, please. So from my center front, I'm going to measure 1 inch that I added for slit. I'm going to measure it out from my neckline till I reach the 30.5 inches that I measured from my shoulder line. So I'm connecting it straight for you guys to see. From my neckline till I reach that 30.5 inches. So after connecting like this, I'm going to stitch from here to here. Now I'm done stitching, as you can see. Let me open it up for you guys to see. So this is the slit and this is my back part. I'm going to place it on my front. Let the right side face each other. This is my front part, just for you guys to see. I'm placing my back on it. Let the right side face each other because I want to stitch my two shoulders. So I'll go ahead now to my machine and stitch my two shoulders from here to here with 1/2 inch. I'm done stitching my two shoulders. As you can see, here's the right side of my dress. Now I'm going to spread it out like this for me to double fold the edges and hem it all around. I'm done hemming it. As you can see, I'm hemming it all around. So I'm placing it like this and stitch from the armpit to the down part of my dress on both sides. I'm done stitching on both sides, as you can see. So I'll go ahead and use bias tape to finish up my neckline. After doing that, I'll move on to the slit by turning to the wrong side. I'm going to overlock the rough edges, both rough edge. I'm going to overlock it and use my hand needle and thread to hem it. So I'm starting the hemming from the bottom till where the slit starts. After doing that, I'm going to give it a good press and put it on for you guys to see. Here is where I'm stopping for today, guys. If my tutorial has been helpful to you, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel to support my channel. If you have any question pertaining to cutting and sewing, you can join me on my Facebook group, Details to Sewing, created by Akorede Adenike. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Akorede Adenike. Please show some love by liking and following my page on Facebook at Akorede Adenike Sewing Tutorial. Till I see you in my next video, stay safe, stay blessed, bye bye.